as you're preparing the final draft of MWA2, your annotated bibliography, make sure that you take a look at this editing checklist to ensure that you've completed all of the things that you need to complete concerning the annotated bibliography. You will need to make sure that you have 4 sources. 2 of those sources will come from the library databases, and then 2 of those sources are sources that you found on the web. Make sure that you're carefully reviewing and using the rules of MLA citation. If you are struggling with this, I highly suggest getting a one-on-one session either online or in person with the Academic Success Center to have someone go over this with you. By this time in English 102, that means you've had a semester and a half of first year composition. You should be able to clearly cite works using MLA format. If this is something you are still struggling with, you really need to seek out some extra help for this, because a large portion of the points for this assignment comes with making sure that you've cited these things correctly. So if you need extra help, be sure that you give yourself enough time to reach out for that help before the deadline for MWA2. After you're following the appropriate MLA model, make sure that you've completely cited your resource. If you notice that you have a lot of missing information, like you have no author, no publisher, no publication date, then it's more than likely that you do not have a reliable academic source. The resources from the databases like JSTOR and Academic Search Premier, they're going to have this information. Make sure you're looking at the title page, make sure you're looking at all parts of the article to find this information. If you are finding a source on the web, a multimedia source, or an article on the web, and it does not have this information, it is likely not a reliable source. Okay? At the very least, you should have a publisher. You know what website it's published on, and it should have an author. Academics who are giving out their information want other people to know that they wrote it. They want credit for their work. So don't lose points on a citation because you left out important information. If all of your citations have NP, ND, I'm really going to be questioning whether that's an academic resource, and I'm going to look at your resource and see if I couldn't quickly find that information. And if I can, I'm going to take points off. So just be warned. Make sure you're not missing any information. You might choose to use a citation generator to generate your citations. I know a lot of you will use the ones in the database. You can click on cite this in MLA. Some people use EasyBib or whatever. I don't know what the kids are using these days. And it's fine. I use them. When I take a math class, I use a calculator. Okay? But citation generators are just like calculators. You can still fail calculus using a calculator. If you don't know what to put in that calculator, it's not going to spit out the right answer. And it's the same with a citation generator. If you don't put in all the information, it's going to spit out weird things, and your citation's not going to be correct. So make sure that you are double checking your resources if you use those types of tools, to make sure they're correct. Another thing is sometimes when you generate the citation from the databases, it'll have the author's name in all capital letters. That is not correct. Make sure you fix those capital letters. Sometimes things will be italicized that should be in quotation marks, or they'll be in quotation marks that should be italicized. Remember, those citation generators are computers. They're reading information from the resource and it might be in the wrong order sometimes. So double check your citations. Don't lose points on silly little stuff, okay? Your resources have to have 3 parts to them. There should be a summary, an assessment, and a reflection. Make sure that you are using these 3 points. Review back over the annotated bibliography handout from the Purdue OWL that we've been using to help us generate these annotations. These are some of the questions they suggest you ask yourself. Just make sure that when you're answering them fully and completely. For instance, if you're reflecting on a source, if you just say this source is helpful, that doesn't mean anything. Make sure you're telling us why a source is helpful or why it is not helpful. Use the third person instead of the first person when you are writing your annotations. Remember, annotated in bibliography helps you survey the research out there on a specific subject. You might not find every source to be helpful or relevant. That's okay, just explain why. Proofread. Walk away and proofread again. Finally, just some general document design standards. Make sure everything is in 12-point Times New Roman font. On the first page, have your name, my name, the date, and the subject in the upper left-hand corner of the first page. Put a header with your last name and the page number in the upper right-hand corner. Title your work. Do not bold, do not underline, do not italicize that title. Use only black 12 Times New Roman font. A typical title for an assignment like this is an annotated bibliography of Little Red Riding Hood and Hoodwinked. Okay, could be creative. Name your brainchild. Make sure each citation has a hanging indent. If you are not sure of how to do that in Word, you can highlight the citation, right-click, select paragraph, indentation, special, and change that to hanging. You can also look up, do a hanging indent on Word on YouTube, and I'm sure there is some like 7-year-old kid that will tell you how to do it. All lines should be double spaced. Do not add an extra line between the citations. Make sure your annotations, again, are well developed. There should be a summary, an assessment, and a reflection. Again, saying it's a good source is not an adequate reflection. Tell us why the source is great. If you directly quote from the source, don't forget to put a parenthetical citation with the last name and page number at the end of the quote, paraphrase, or summary. And again, take a look over at the Purdue OWL for a sample annotated bibliography. This shows you what the format should look like. You have your source, and then you have your 3 paragraphs under the resource. Okay, this is what it should look like. Finally, proofread. Walk away and proofread again before submitting. I hope that you found this checklist helpful, and I hope that it helps you as you continue to edit and construct your final copy of your MWA2 annotated bibliography.